Today on the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast, episode number 16, we're going to tackle something called sugar addiction. That my guest, Dan Defigio, next on the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast.
Welcome to the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast, a podcast about a journey of discovery and conversations about not sitting on the sideline of life. Let's get involved. Here's host Joe Foley.
Welcome to another episode of No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast. Hey, my name is Joe Foley. I'm a dad and a parent, crazy busy adult like you. I want to say thank you for being here. I know your time is limited, so you choose to spend time listening. That means a lot. And this is your first time, welcome. This is a podcast about having a conversation about topics related to being a parent, a dad, and, an adult trying to take care of their family, themselves, their health. These topics I find interesting, might be related to you, something you might be going through the same thing I am. I would say we're all going through the same issues. I'm not an expert. I'm just on a journey just like you, trying to take one day at a time in this crazy world. Well, today my guest on the podcast is Dan Defigio, author of Beating Sugar Addiction for Dummies. Dan has been featured on CNN Fitness Nation, The Dr. Phil Show, and other media outlets. Dan has coached many people over the years, and I know he has a lot of useful information because I found his interview very helpful and made me think about next time I went to the coffee shop to get my sugar latte super coffee drink. So let's jump right into the interview. Today on the podcast, my guest, Dan Defigio, best-selling author, sugar addiction expert in his book, Beating Sugar Addiction for Dummies, also a director of Basic and Beyond Fitness and Nutrition, based in Tennessee. He worked as a professional trained nutrition counselor. Welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you for asking me to come on. It's been nice getting a chance to know you.
And it's been interesting. I mean, I think sugar is a big deal to everybody. And I'm wondering, what made you decide to write a book about beating sugar addiction?
Well, it actually, that as a specialty sort of evolved over time. I've been in the fitness and the nutrition fields for over 20 years. I started in the early 1990s. And as I started doing nutrition coaching, I found that one of the biggest struggles that people have over all the years is trying to get their eating in line. People get addicted to junk food and convenience food, and people end up reaching for sugar for convenience or for comfort or for energy. So sugar as a food really has become a problem for a lot of people. So I started doing a lot of work in helping people get around that and steer them back to more normal, healthy eating, stop the stress eating, stop the junk food. And pretty soon, the Dummies publishers found some of my writing online, and they contacted me and said, would you do a book for us? And I said, absolutely.
Well, that's a very interesting, and I saw that, I'm like, that's awesome. A book about sugar addiction for dummies, because we don't always know. I mean, obviously at the local donut shop, there's a coffee shop. I know they have something going, especially with all the lattes and the coffees. I'm a victim of. I'm not a victim, but I said I make bad choices, I guess. When you say that I want my iced coffee with the caramel swirl, but I'm like, I'm not putting sugar in, but I think I'm still putting sugar in.
Yeah, some of those coffee drinks have like 80 grams of sugar in them. There's a lot, your Choco Mocha Frappuccinos are a lot of times loaded with sugar and extra calories.
Is it just sugar addiction, or is different types of sugar addiction?
Well, I think there's a spectrum, just like anything else. And most of the people that I work with are folks who have just fallen into behaviors that are a real problem. They tend to put their own well-being and their own health and their own sort of planning on the back burner because, I know a lot of your listeners, everybody's got kids and family and stuff like that. So people tend to sort of put themselves last and not put any time or effort into thinking about how they're going to feed themselves for the next few hours. So when you end up leaving yourself at the mercy of whatever you can grab, then you're going to get in trouble, because generally what you can grab is junk food.
What would be, I would say, what would be what could be a substitute? I mean, there's two different kinds of sugars, I guess. I mean, I know the sugar, but is there, like, the fake sugar? Is there a thing that's fake sugar? Is that the same kind of sugar, or like aspartame, or?
Oh, yeah, right. The chemical sweeteners. Those are 0-calorie sweeteners, but they're really bad for you, depending on what kind. So if you need to have a sweetener that isn't sugar, stevia powder is a good substitute, because that comes from a plant leaf. It's a 0-calorie sweetener, and it doesn't cause any of the health problems and the brain damage and the appetite disruption and stuff that some of the other chemical sweeteners have. So stay away from diet sodas and aspartame and NutraSweet and MSG and sucralose and all those chemical sweeteners. They're bad news. Go with stevia if you need a sweetener.
It's funny you say that, because I've been drinking a lot of water, and I had my addiction to Coke, Diet Coke, actually. And I noticed, and you mentioned that about, is it true, like the fog? I mean, people, I mean, right now I'm talking to you, but I mean, if I go off my Diet Coke diet, like go off it and just drink water, I get these big headaches and a lot of fog. What causes that? Do you know, or?
You get headaches when you stop doing the Diet Coke?
Yes.
I would probably assume that's more of a caffeine withdrawal, because that's a real common side effect of caffeine withdrawal. If you quit coffee or you quit soda cold turkey for a couple of days, people can get headaches, but it only lasts a few days typically.
What is I mean, I think a lot of people are victim of this, of sugar, of emotional problem. Like when you're having a bad day, you just reach for that ice cream. You know, you have that, or that cookie, or that brownie. Is that one of the addiction, cause addiction of sugar, of the reaching for emotional reasons?
Yeah, I think that is a really big part of it for a lot of people. What we as humans tend to do is substitute stuff that feels good for stuff that doesn't feel good. So what I found over my years of coaching people who have stress eating problems and sugar addiction, carboholics, chocoholics, that kind of stuff. Any of the aholics. Basically, what is really common for folks who are in that space is that you end up habitually reaching for sugar instead of attending to what you really want. So let's use the example. Excuse me. Let's use the example that you just said. So let's say somebody's having a stressful day at work, right? So this is a dad who's, maybe his kid's sick, his wife is busting his chops about stuff like this, his boss is on his back, he's stressed out, he's overwhelmed. And so what this guy really wants is a feeling of control and peacefulness and hope. Well, guess what, Joe? M&Ms are not going to give you that.
Oh, no.
Right? So what we end up doing is we say, boy, it feels really crappy to feel like bad about myself and feel stressed and feel overwhelmed. So I'm going to distract myself with something. And, it's common to use sugar as a distraction, but a lot of people use alcohol or drugs or sex or gambling or, whatever. You just insert your self-medication here, whatever it is. It just so happens that, I work with people who use food instead of other things, but it's the same idea. So the key to starting to turn this around is to use your craving as a red flag. You're like, okay, I got a sugar craving, so that means what is it that I really want? What am I really seeking here? Is it comfort? Is it peacefulness? Is it mental stimulation? Am I bored? Am I thirsty? Maybe I just need water instead of food. You got to start to teach yourself how to do that 10-second reality check and figure out what you really want, because like I said, it's not cookies what you really want.
And I notice a lot of late night eating too when I'm bored, like late night at the 9 o'clock and everything's all settled down, and I'm like, those cookies look really good right now. Yeah,
exactly. Well, Joe, let me help you out with this. First of all, make sure that kind of stuff that is no good for you isn't in the house and isn't easily accessible. Make it really hard to get junk food. If you really, really want ice cream, get up, get in the car, drive down to the ice cream shop, get yourself a cone. If it's sitting in the freezer or if it's sitting in the pantry, it's just too easy and too convenient. So when you're shopping, don't set yourself up for trouble like that.
Well, it's something I'd like to change a little bit. I'm kind of curious. You're the director of Basic and Beyond Fitness Nutrition based in Tennessee. What is a job like that entails, and what do you do there?
Oh, okay. Well, Basics and Beyond Fitness and Nutrition is a service company that I have in the Nashville, Tennessee area, and we do fitness training and nutrition and physical therapy.
What kind of advice would you give somebody who's looking to lose weight? I mean, I'm just wondering in the fact that we see all these foods, but for me, an example, I'm looking going, I like that, eat that, but I have to eat, instead of eating one, I'm going to eat two or three because that doesn't look like a full snack. And I'm always wondering, maybe if I can find that one thing to eat that would fill me up, I won't have to eat the other two. I was wondering some advice what that would be like.
Well, I am generally not a sort of all or nothing or a black and white kind of person. So I can't say, I'd love to say, Joe, this is the wonder food that you have been seeking. And if you eat this for a snack every afternoon, you'll never be hungry and you'll never have a sugar craving and your life will be wonderful. But it just doesn't really work like that. People are different, situations are different. So what I try to do when I work with people and I coach people is I try to look at the really big picture. And once you get sort of the big rocks in place as far as nutrition and health and lifestyle and stress management and that kind of stuff, then you can start dialing in some of the little details to fit your own situation. So, when you talk about portion control, for example, is what you were referring to. You said, when I eat this, I have 3 or 4 of them instead of one of them. So one of the things that you could do, I got 2 hints for you for portion control in general. Number one, get a good sense of, what actually is a serving. I've got that posted on one of my websites at beatingsugaraddiction.com. There's if you type in the search bar, type the word serving or portion. Actually, portion will probably give you a lot of results. Type serving instead. And one of the posts that I put up is a little graphic and some information about what is a serving of protein, what is a serving of starch, what is a serving of fat, those kinds of things, to give you a better idea of what a portion is, so you're not just eating until it's all gone. And go ahead, sir.
No, I was going to say that's something that we all. I think it's ingrained in us when we're a kid. Is when I remember I was little, my mom was like, you got to finish everything plate before you leave, and you get an adult and the portions get bigger, and you get that I got to finish everything on my plate.
Yeah, that's the one that I struggle with the most. I think I have the junk food thing pretty much under control. The kinds of food that I reach for are good quality foods. I eat healthy, but I like to eat a lot, man. I'm with you. I'm sort of like, if there's more food in front of me, I want to keep eating until it's gone. So that's the big thing I got to watch myself is the portion control right there.
And any other website do you also your Beat the Sugar Addiction? What kind of you have a blog? What else do you have on the website?
Well, on the website, I've got a lot on beatingsugaraddiction.com. I have a lot of information about basically how to get off of sugar, how to start steering yourself towards a healthier eating and healthier nutrition. My big approach, Joe, is really about building healthy habits through baby steps and small incremental changes. Because here's what happens when people do it the other way. They try to cold turkey stuff. They try to do 180-degree detox lifestyle makeover, change 20 different habits as if that, okay, on Monday, I'm going to be able to eat everything perfectly. I'm never going to have any sugar. I'm never going to have junk food. I'm going to eat only healthy, perfect foods all the time. I'm going to exercise every day. I'm going to manage my stress. I'm going to get great sleep. I'm going to do all this. And, you can't make those many changes all at once and expect it to last for more than 2 hours. So I don't try to get people to do any of that crap. What I try to do is get people to start to make gradual, incremental improvements, 1 or 2 things this week, 1 or 2 things next week, so that kind of thing becomes normal for you. And that's a really important concept. whatever is normal for you, that's what you're going to default to, and that is what your life is like. Whatever you do most of the time, that's what you get. And you could say that about, we're talking about nutrition right now, but that you could say that about your relationships, your, how you are around your family, your work ethic. Whatever you do most of the time, that's what you get. So if you don't like what you're getting, you have to change what you usually do. You have to build a new normal. So when I coach people around nutrition, I start to work on, all right, let's take this one thing or these two things, and we're going to tweak them and improve it. So now your normal is that much better. And you do that week in and week out with these little incremental changes. And after, 5 months, 6 months, 9 months, you turn around and your whole life is different. Your nutrition is better, your lifestyle is better. And most importantly, you don't really feel like you're doing anything that different because it feels pretty normal because that's what you do these days.
That's a great concept and a great thing what you do. Because I used to work for a gym a long time ago, and it was always seemed like it was big business. They want you to buy this certain candy bar and this certain powder. And I really, really like the way you do it, like building with small building. It's almost like building with small building blocks, bigger and bigger and bigger. It sometimes seems to me what you're saying, as you're building a little bit at a time to its new normal. And that's it's great concept. I really like that.
Well, thank you. And that's really the only way to make sustainable changes. You can't change everything all at once and expect to willpower your way through it forever. We're just not wired to do that. As soon as something happens, as soon as one of the kids gets sick or God forbid somebody dies or gets hurt in an accident or something like that, then you're completely derailed and you go back to crash and burn before you did anything. So the end result there is you haven't really changed anything. So when you build a new normal, then no matter what is going on around you, you're still centered and pretty much doing the same smarter, healthier things.
It's interesting. I remember when I was younger, I was working an overnight shift a lot, and a lot of the sugary drinks that come out, like I don't know, you can name it, the super duper, super sugar. And the one thing I found interesting, you have 3 or 4 of those in the morning, by midday you crash. And you see in the news and stuff, some kids drink a lot of them and try to stay up, and they die basically. And I wonder what you thought about that. I mean, and the sugar, because it must be the sugar content must be unbelievable in those drinks.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with that particular story, but most of those energy drinks are loaded up with sugar and loaded up with caffeine. So it will give you a pretty good buzz for a short period of time, but you'll crash hard after that. And if you continue to sort of rely on those external stimulants for energy, what happens from a physiology standpoint is your adrenal cortex actually starts shutting down, and it starts relying on these external stimulants to function properly.
What is one thing I'm interested about sugar, and over time, how does it help? Like, not help a person, because gaining weight is not helping, but how does it build on, how's a person gain weight? Is over a slow period of time, a lot of sugar, it builds up? Or
Yeah, most of the time. Here, let me give you a little math. I hope this is something interesting for you and your listeners. 100 calories a day extra, which is hardly anything. It's a few bites of something. It's a half a soda. It's not a lot of extra food, but 100 calories a day extra is 10 pounds in a year. So just by sneaking in a little, a few extra bites, a little bit extra here and there, you can gain weight without even really noticing. And the good news is vice versa. If you start turning that around, if you eat 100 calories less every day, or you burn 100 calories more through exercise, which is what I'll suggest that you do, then you lose 10 pounds in a year and you don't even notice.
Oh, wow, that's a great, I like that idea, actually. I might start doing that, write all that stuff down. I might start changing my way of doing things. Well, wrapping up, I guess, any final thoughts, where they can find your book, and where they can get in touch with you? Do they have any questions?
Well, sure. I think the best handout and little tip sheet that I have for folks is available for free on beatingssugaraddiction.com. It's a handy little handout that is a guidebook that you get, and it's called 3 Steps to Kill Your Sugar Cravings. And when you get a sugar craving and that urge to have something sweet, this is a little 3-step process that you go through that almost invariably kills your cravings and gets you set back on a straight and narrow. So go to beatingsugaraddiction.com and download that for free. I hope you will use it and enjoy it. And if someone wants to get in touch with me about some of my other nutrition services, if they need help, some coaching, maybe some family wellness, my contact information is there at beatingsugaraddiction.com.
Well, thank you, Dan. I really do appreciate you being on the podcast today. And we'll find all the show notes, all the links and everything in the podcast show notes for Dan's book and his website. And again, Dan, thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
It has really been fun, Joe. Thank you so much for bringing me on.
Well, that's all I have for this episode. Thank you for joining me on the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast. I want to say thanks to Dan Defigio from beatingsugaraddiction.com. You can find all the contact information for Dan over at No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast /episode 16. All his contacts, social media contacts will be there. Also, please comment on the show. Anything you say, try to keep it constructive, negative or positive. I like to hear what you have to say because it helps improve the show. And also, if you have an opportunity, please read a review because all the reviews help. And I know I'm asking a lot, but if you have a moment, please sign up for the newsletter because it'll help give you updates of what's going on and upcoming shows. I promise not to spam you. I just want to let you know what's coming up the next shows. You find it useful information. Well, all the stuff that I find through all the people I interview, like Dan Defigio from beatingsugaraddiction.com. Well, until next time. Also, I forgot one more thing. You can find all my contact information at No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast /contact. That'll be my email contact, my social media contact. Well, thank you for your time. Until next time, take care. God bless. Give your kids a hug. Take care of your health. Take care of yourself. Because we only have one life to live. Until next time, God bless. Take care. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please subscribe to the newsletter to receive updates of the show and helpful and useful tips. This has been a production of Foley 42 Media.